Today we're going to look at solving an inequality. There are 4 inequalities that we use in algebra, and if you want to find them on your calculator, you can find them by hitting Second Math. The first one kind of looks like an L and starts with the word less than. So the first one is less than. If you're graphing it on a number line, the less than symbol is going to have an open circle. The next one is less than or equal to. Notice that there is a line underneath it that makes it equal to. This will be represented by a closed circle on the number line. The third one is greater than. It is represented with an open circle. And the fourth one is greater than or equal to, which is represented with a closed circle. Let's look at a real basic inequality to graph. It says x is greater than 3. One thing that I encourage my students to do is notice that this right here kind of looks like an arrow. So it's pointing to the right. So x is greater than 3 is going to be an open circle pointing to the right. The next one, if we make our arrow that matches our inequality, it's pointing to the left, and it kind of looks like an L. So since it's less than or equal to, we're going to use the closed circle, and it's going to go on -2. X is less than or equal to -2. Let's see if we can create the inequality from the graph. It's pointing to the right, so our inequality is going to be greater than. Since there's no line under, or since it's an open circle, that means there's going to be no line, and it starts at 4. Looking at the one on the bottom, my arrow goes this way. Hence, my inequality is going to be the exact same. Since it's a closed circle, there's a line underneath it, and it looks like it's at -8. Now let's look at actually solving the inequality. We're going to treat this just like we solved solving equations, such that the left-hand side is going to go in y1 and the right-hand side is going to go in y2. The big difference is now we're going to use y3. In y3, we're going to put y1 is less than y2. So let's look at how this would look. I've already got the left-hand side in y1, and I've got the right-hand side in y2. So now let's put y1. To get that, we hit alpha trace. We choose y1, and we want to make it less than, so we hit second math. And we have our inequalities. Number 5 is less than. And now we're going to do alpha trace y2. We hit graph. I'm going to zoom 6 to make sure it's a normal graph. Now you're going to notice our first inequality, our left-hand side is going to be in blue. The right-hand side is going to be in red still, but now we've got this black line that we've never dealt with before. The black line tells us the direction our inequality goes. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit second trace 5 and find our intersection. And we see that our intersection is at -1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hit the down arrow, and notice that the little cursor moved to the black line. I want to know which direction do I have to go in to follow the raised line. So if I go to the right, oops, I'm sorry. Okay, as I was saying, which direction do I have to go, right or left, to make that dot go towards the raised line? And if you look, if I go to the right, it's the raised sign. What that means is that I want my inequality to be going that way, right? Okay, and remember our intersection was at -1. So what does that mean? That means my inequality is x is greater than -1, which would mean I'd have an open circle on -1 pointing to the right, and I would want to choose everything that is greater than -1. So 4, 0, 5. I do not choose -1 because I do not have a line underneath it. Let's try another one. Alright, -10, x minus 1 is going to go on the left-hand side. -8x plus 14 is going to go on the right-hand side. And in the y3, I have to have y1 is less than or equal to y2. So I've already done the work. 10 x minus 1, I think it's supposed to be -10. Let me fix that really quick. Alright, there we go. -10 x minus 1 is in y1. -8x plus 14 is in y2. And we want to have y1 is less than or equal to. So the only thing I have to do is arrow down and replace this second math with less than or equal to, which is number 6. We graph it. y1, y2, and the black line is my y3. I find my intersection by hitting second trace 5, enter 3 times until it says intersection. My intersection is at -2. I hit the down arrow, and I see I have to again go to the right to stay on the raised line. So I want my arrow to go to the right, and my intersection was at -2. I want my arrow to go to the right, and my intersection was at -2. So I copy this arrow down, notice that this one has a line underneath it. That means I also have to put a line right here. So x is greater than or equal to -2. I want a closed circle on -2, and I'm going to choose everything that is greater than or equal to -2. In this case, I would choose -2 because it's equal to. Alright, let's look at one last one. This one is a little bit challenging because when you try to find your intersection, we do have to zoom out. So when we start setting it up just like we normally would, y1, y2, in y3 I want to have y1 is less than or equal to y2. I've already done the work, y1, y2, y1 is less than or equal to 2. Now here is the picture of the graph. I went ahead and paused it so you didn't have to wait for it to graph. But when I do second trace 5, enter 3 times, I get my error, which tells me I need to zoom out. So quit, zoom, 3, enter. So we still have to wait for it to graph y1, y2, and y3. So second trace 5, enter 3 times. My intersection is at 14. I hit the down arrow. Which direction do I need to go? Now it's harder to tell which one is raised, but the one that is more bold is the one I'm looking for. So which direction do I have to go to get to the more bold line? And that's going to be to the right. So for the third time, I want to go to the right. My intersection was at 14. I want to go to the right. And we have to put a line underneath it. Let me rewrite that. Greater than or equal to 14. And I'm looking for everything that is greater than or equal. That's not one. Greater than or equal to 14. Now in this case, all 3 of our examples went to the right. Okay, that is not always going to be the case. Let's look at an example where it wouldn't go to the right. I'm going to go ahead and use the example that we just did, but instead I'm going to change my inequality to be greater than And let's look at it. So y1, y2, here comes y3. So once again we hit second, trace 5, enter 3 times. We get 14. You hit the down arrow. Now ask yourself, do I have to arrow to the right or to the left to get to the bolder one? Well, in this case, I have to arrow to the left. That means I want my inequality to be going that way. I had to arrow to the left. So in this case, it would be x is less than 14 because you want your inequalities to match. Alright, now that you have watched the video, you can go ahead and log on to your Socrative. The room name, like always, is Gibson, and then um, your your period, so Gibson A1 or Gibson A2.